It's going to be good. All right. Right on. Okay, Julie. So it's so fun because just a moment ago, you were saying something that I've been thinking just so much these days. And I've actually been studying and practicing for a long time, but most particularly in this, I would even say this last 6 weeks, have really felt an awakening of my own divine feminine energy. And not only that it was waking up, but that I was trusting it more. Like I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And it's very interesting because in a way, it leads you to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. But as you do them, you realize, like I'm seeing the bigger function of it all. And so it really is coming down to trust. Like, can I trust myself? Can I trust my intuition? Can I take the hits and know I'm resilient and it's going to be okay, that I'm innocent, and that, you know, if the intention is pure and good, then that's the only thing that matters. So I'm happy to meet you and have this conversation with you. And maybe you could just start us off a little bit with like who you are, why you reached out to me, and what you've been up to. Like, what is your story?
Wow, where do I start?
Good luck. Anywhere.
Well, I'll start with why I reached out to you. I heard you on the Charlie Freak interview, and you said so many things that resonated with my journey as far as having those pure intentions and that innocence about what you do and how it's a spirit-led journey. You know, just like you said, you're kind of waking up to your divine feminine and the importance of you know, how you're being led to impact this generation through that divine feminine energy. And, you know, the same trajectory for me is I, you know, come out of a background of kind of, I guess, evangelical Christianity. And about 10 years ago, I guess I kind of started waking up out of that stupor as far as I just made this journey. As I told you, I wrote a book called Raising Hell, Christianity's Most Controversial Doctrine Put Under Fire. And that was the start of everything for me. Like that was the Pandora's box. And I feel like my whole life, I've been on a journey to get set free from fear. And it's just been layers and layers of an onion. And that was the most important one, because once I realized that hell wasn't true, it just opened up and unleashed something in me that could finally question everything. And it was a safe universe. And I could, you know, turn over every stone. And I, by nature, I'm very curious and I'm an investigator. And you know, another aspect I really related to you in your story is that you feel misunderstood because you feel like, you know, the universe or God or source or whatever is always kind of asking you to do things that just don't make sense to anybody. And, you know, it's like you spend all these years building these things and then come the years of tearing down, and it kind of follows that pattern of, you know, everything is about inhaling and then exhaling and just being able to let go and fall into that wherever it takes you, and to not need the approval of people, and to follow this inner journey fearlessly and knowing that you are you're on a path and you're going to, all the obstacles that you come up to and the people that you meet and you invest in, and maybe at some point your paths diverge because they don't understand you. Well, then the universe brings new people into your life that do understand you, and the inhale begins again. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So,
thank you.
Anyway, so just after writing Raising Hell, it's taken me on a lot of paths, but I just have to say, you know, I have like a huge following of people who are leaving the old paradigm of, you know, this angry God up in the sky who says he loves you in one breath and then dangles you over a barbecue pit for eternity in the next breath. There's a lot of people leaving that and questioning and realizing how none of that adds up, but they're only interested in going so far. And for people like you and me, you know, we're always progressing. We're always looking ahead at the next place that we're being led in, and we know that life is not static. You don't just walk through one door and then you stop and you camp there. You're always moving.
Right.
And so anyway, in recent years, I guess I've faced a lot of fear in the last 10 years. I became a nurse, and then I became an ER nurse, and that in itself was a journey. And right now I'm working in the travel nurse profession just for the sake of building up a holistic retreat center in Puerto Rico. My husband and I moved there last year in, well, he moved there, I guess, in June, and I moved there in September, and I took a year off. But anyway, I have a huge heart for kind of this, holistic health, but especially in the areas of fear, delivering people from fear and helping them come into their empowerment in their divine connection. And so I'm working in a Western medicine model that I don't believe in right now. But I do feel like I make a difference here too. And, I have a lot of love for my patients, but ultimately we're trying to set up this retreat center in the mountains of Puerto Rico. The whole idea kind of chose us, and we just envision that the universe is going to build this, and it's going to bring people who need the message of liberation, empowerment, fearlessness. And, I'm out listening to people, you and Charlie Freak and a lot of other people, Magenta Pixie, and all these people came into my path and my awareness this year. And I just feel like we're all really united in our purpose and our mission. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm still getting to know you too. So I'm sure your listeners probably know a lot about you, but I would enjoy the opportunity to hear a little bit more about your path too.
You're so sweet. Gosh, thank you for sharing that. I just find it so inspiring to, particularly people that have left an organized religion. And that's a big move, because that level of indoctrination is very cellular, and it's very physical. It's physical, it's spiritual, it's emotional, and it's mental. And so when you decide that you're going to wake up and realize that God is love, and that it needs to add up to that, then what you're literally doing is you're just changing paths in such a way it's alchemical. I mean, it is such a big move, and it takes a lot of courage. So I wanted to just acknowledge you for that. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. And I know the feeling. I had a few experiences in my teenage years of being, and I grew up in a Orthodox Christian family and culture. And like I said on Charlie's show, there was a lot about it that I still do resonate with and still love. But it got to a point where it's just like you said, it just doesn't add up. And that was never encouraged. It was always encouraged for me to just be quiet, just go with this. Like, this is what we're doing right now. And I think that God, the universe, source, however anyone wants to hold it, is constantly asking us to become more and more aware of our divine nature, which means that we can't just accept what doesn't resonate with us. Like, that's one of the core principles of evolution, is that you have to live your morals. And it does ask you to upset others. I mean, it's not your intention to upset anyone. It's not your intention to break anyone's bubble. As I feel like in my own life, like I've broken, like a lot of people have had like this, like, what are you doing thing? But there's a power that comes with fearlessness. And that's what I feel happens when you let go of this fear of God, that you're going to be punished somehow. And you realize that that's actually what organized society is all about. It's all about keeping us in these lower vibrations where we don't question our reality, where we don't question, those in the higher ups. And we're just constantly being bombarded with this information from the time that we enter the womb. I mean, I've been teaching this and talking about this for 20 years. Like, whoa, wow, look at what's happened to us. And at some point, we just decide that God is love. And the more that we decide that, the more that we're shown that that's the ultimate truth. And that's basically, I mean, a little bit about, my philosophy. Like, when you said hell doesn't exist, I agree with that, in that the reality of love, of heaven, is what it is. It cannot be changed by our insanity. Like, it is what it is. Hell is what we've created by our insanity and belief that we're separate from our creator. And it's that guilt. It's that guilt of like how we fell from, the Garden of Eden, how we decided we wanted to know about good and evil. Like that decision that humanity made has catapulted us into this, the yogis call it the Wheel of Samsara, where we're constantly like, like on this hamster wheel. And people like you and me, more, and gosh, so much more this year in particular, people have just like jumped off the hamster wheel and been like, what just happened? Like, what just happened?
All jumped off the hamster wheel this year.
Yeah, like millions of people are jumping off the hamster wheel, and it's incredible. It's amazing. And that's why I feel so inspired to be in touch with, so many people, like you just said, like they come off, you let go of some people, but like, wow, that's why God is only love. Because if we can practice detachment, if we can trust that hell is a decision and so is heaven, and we have the power to decide what kind of experience we want to have on a moment-to-moment basis. And so when we step off that hamster wheel and we decide, okay, I just want love, like your center is going to happen. All of the work that you've been putting forward, all of that now is going to get a lot easier because more and more of us are waking up to the reality of our sovereignty and that we can make these decisions on our own. And yes, people will be upset, but new people will come. And that's what's been so fun for me is like I can literally see that I am ascending. Like it's like a real thing. I was saying to my husband, like, we're having all of these physical changes. Our diet is changing. My body is changing.
Wow.
It's just been amazing. And if you look at the facts of life, Julie, and I'll say this to you, like what I think we need to do more and more is just keep trusting that we're worthy. Like worthiness, I think, because a lot of us have been so wounded by these ideologies, and we've been so accustomed and normalized to fear that to believe that we're worthy. Like I live in a beautiful environment. My office is in a 5-star like boutique hotel, like with an amazing pool and a view of the ocean. Like I live in the jungle. My children are beautiful and healthy. They've never been vaccinated. I drink coconuts from coconuts every day. Like, this is amazing that we're having this kind of life. But I tell you, it would have never happened if I didn't start making decisions, especially when I was around 18, saying, yeah, that priest who told me that I shouldn't have communion for 7 years because I had sex, that didn't feel right to me. Yes, we need to reconsider what sex looks like, and we need to do it from a holy place. That's so important. I'm learning more about that right now. But the guilt, like that, I don't want that anymore. And so starting to make those decisions and I moved to California when I was 24. I left politics. I said, forget that. I don't want to do anything like that. It's evil. And then I'm just going to do all this yoga stuff. And then at some point it's full circle this year around, I don't want to just be in this love and light culture. I really do believe that our function and our purpose is to manifest more equality on this planet, to uncover our collective darkness, to bring it to the light, to surrender our insanity. Like, just give it up. Like, we've created this hell. It's unreal because heaven hasn't changed. It is what it is. It's bliss, it's glory, it's unity, it's beautiful. We can tap into it any moment of any day. There it was. Like, it's right there. Any moment of any day we get to have it. But all it requires from us is a willingness to change and to let go. And I guess that's what I would share with you around my own personal journey. Let go of the fact that, people are mad at me. And what that does is it gives me and all of us an opportunity to trust ourselves more and to trust our own inner compass and our own connection to God. Like, none of us need an intermediary between the Almighty. Like we can go there directly. Like I don't need all this baggage here. I don't need all these people telling me what to think and what to do. And that for me is really like the bottom line. I don't want anyone to tell me what to think or what to talk about or anything like that. And go ahead.
I was just going to say that flies in the face of religion, because your whole life you're told what to think and how to think. And that's dangerous to a system, and you said so many good things there that I just wanted to
just went off on a whole tangent. I was like,
no, that's all such good stuff though. But I feel like what you said in there too about our separation consciousness, and I don't remember how you said it, but ultimately, did you ever read the 4 Agreements?
Oh yeah. I love
Oh
that.
my gosh, that was so good.
Totally.
Anyway, ultimately, I feel like we're here to wake up to the ways we've been indoctrinated and the ways we've been put on this separate consciousness. And really, as I've learned and progressed in my journey, the word sin, even now, to me, it means the perception of separation from God and others and all of the behaviors that result from that. And
Beautiful.
as we set out to mend this rift that we have, and I feel like religion, the first half of my life, just set me up for this separate consciousness where I just felt isolated, I felt alone, I felt like misunderstood and all these things. But as you start dismantling each of those tentacles in your mind that just keep you in bondage to this separateness, then you start making these connections with people, and it's just like, in my situation, writing a book that takes on the doctrine of hell. I'm a woman, I'm not seminary trained.
Amazing.
All these things, those are exactly the people that the universe picks to do things. It doesn't want the educated, and I'm not saying I'm an uneducated person, but I'm just saying, that's thrown in your face. Well, have you been to seminary? Well, no, I haven't, but a child could spot these truths. They resonate from within. And I guess I wanted to encourage you. Part of why I got in touch with you is I sensed that the pain of that whole culture, your past culture or whatever, turning their back on you over you embracing newer, better truths, which is what we're always after. What's the next revelation or the next higher truth behind this truth? And as you are making your way and those people just aren't ready for that yet or can't understand you, I wanted to reach out to you and just let you know there are those of us out there who are making this way, and we are always saying yes to the truth and the new truths put in front of us, and even at the cost of the people who aren't ready for it yet. And I feel like for us to mend this wound of separateness, we have to find each other out here, and we have to support each other and say you're not alone on this path, and we're all doing this together. And this is a tough time. I mean, I normally live in such a high vibration place, but this year has really at times taken the wind out of my sails, because I've been red pilled in some new ways that I wasn't ready for either. So it's important to reach out and connect with people who are helping me keep my vibration up and who are keeping that hope alive that we're going somewhere better here. So
Thank you so much for that. And I think that that's what's inspired me so much, is that, people like you, I mean, like hundreds of messages, like I'm just like, whoa, this is amazing. And every single one of them, Julie, I want to say this to you and to anyone who listens to this in the future, every single one, not one person, I want to like knock on something so I don't curse myself, but like not one person wrote me anything negative. Like,
wow.
I mean, it's shocking. Everybody that reached out to me was, we love you. They were calling me sister. You're doing great. Keep going. And it was like, wow, I have been talking to these other people that have all like, it's very similar to, the biblical allegories that we see. Like if you look at the crucifixion, like, all of the Jews coming together and saying, he wants to be our king and we need to kill him and he's bad and da, da, da. Like that's what happened on a very like just minute level in my own life. But I think that it's happening because it happens. Like that is the story. That is the story of our crucifixion, that the people that we love and trust the most, the people that we're here for, the people that we've trained, the people that we love. And then they come together and they decide that that you're not the one that they want anymore. And then they, do all of those things and whatever.
Yeah.
And then they leave. And that is very hurtful. I mean, I was totally off guard. I didn't see it coming, which is kind of like funny when I look back at it. I mean, obviously that would have happened, Marie. What were you thinking? Like, of course, everybody was going to think you were nuts. But I actually did think that it would be an opportunity for our community to move through this red pill, this information that is so, look, it's true, okay? Things are happening on this planet. You can't deny that anymore unless you just don't want it. and you can't, and that's
Or
okay.
yeah, you can't. Probably a lot of people that just can't go there. They're just not ready to know how bad it is in some ways.
Yeah. And people like us have had a head start. So thank you for reaching out. And all the people that have reached out to me and encouraged me to keep going, because there's something that happens once you go through the rabbit hole. Julie, and you probably agree with me on this. Like, once you go through that, and because you've written a book and because you know God in your heart and you know what it is to have Christ consciousness and you know what it is to be in a high vibe, like, you can go through this. Like, that's what kept me moving towards the light. And
we should probably call it a birth canal.
it is, oh my God, that's so good. It's such a, it is, you become rebirthed and you wake up to another level of consciousness. And then from that place, you kind of look back through the portal and you're like, guys, I did it first. Come on, it's fine. Right. Only love is real.
It's okay.
It's going to be okay. And you're going to be so much better and brighter and such a powerhouse. And you're going to know God in such a more true way. You know, and that's okay. And then they're just going, no. And it's fine. But when I got to this side of the portal, wow, was the love and encouragement so beautiful. And to be like in touch with people like Charlie Freak and Colleen, like these guys are like, wow, now that I'm alchemizing the psychic hits, like it's very intense. Like, and you know this, like it's hard. It's hardcore. We're unplugging from matrices that are literally dense and heavy and yucky. And, oh gosh, is this an intense journey? But only love is real. And I keep coming back to that. Only love is real. So no matter what darkness you see, the minute you allow it and you allow that process to move through your body and then you release it, you get to transmute this dark. Like, you become the salvation of the world. Just you over there, wherever you are in New Mexico, just me over here on the coast of Mexico. Like, you get to be a part of the correction. And that for me is essential. And that's why I had to come out of the closet, because it was like, here I was as like a spiritual teacher, but I was afraid to talk about the darkness. And I was afraid of being misunderstood. And I was afraid of going up against organized society and what I was told as a woman I was supposed to say and I was supposed to do. But again, it comes back to worthiness and knowing who you are. And that's the ultimate that I think we're all looking for, is that, like, look, we're good. We're good. It's just, we have all of these layers we need to alchemize. And that's why I think so many people are having a hard time with this information, because they just can't believe it. And once you look at it, you have to extract your thread in it. Like, you just have to. You have to admit, you know what? I've been violent against children. Maybe I haven't gone that deep, but I've certainly yelled at my children. I'm not proud of that, but I've done it.
Well, and really, we've been violent against children by not helping with it. I mean, it's the sin of omission too, right? Like, not doing our part to care. And I mean, we could say, well, I didn't know, that the children were being, going through such torturous situations. However, we do know that there's poverty with children. And I actually had a second book that I wrote about this topic, and it was kind of about doing our part to help orphan and abandoned children around the world and raising your children. It was called 1 Million Arrows, Raising Your Children to Change the World. It was, it was in my Christian perspective days, but it had a really good spirit about raising your children with their gifts and abilities to alleviate the suffering in the world, and as a family investing in orphan and abandoned children. So I'm just saying, I can look back over my life and say, what ways have I relieved suffering with what I've known, with what I've been aware of? And that's what we're all responsible for. But then it's like this year, waking up to even these new levels of pain and suffering. And it's a difficult thing to get through. And that's why we do need each other. But
totally.
You said something else I was going to comment on, but it'll come back to me.
Well, what you just said is so important. Like, we do need each other. And I said, I have a high profile friend who I don't want to mention right now, but like, she's big time and she's got a lot of, millions of, she's like that. And she's not talking too publicly about any of this right now. And a little bit here and there. And we had a conversation last week, and, I said to her, like, we shouldn't be alone. Like, you shouldn't have all this information and be alone with it, because that's not how this is. This is, we're in this thing together. And
Mhm.
and I think that's what's inspired me so much from like coming out of the closet and being like, wait a second, I need to be screaming about this. Like I need to be like, I need to be on this. And I started and my podcast, and I've talked about, moving from victimization to being a victor, how to fear, becoming fearless is about fearing fearless, and who's in charge of the world. Like I've been talking about this, but it's something for people. It's like you just have to take that one moment to just even admitting that Wikipedia might not be the God's honest truth. Like just even that, or maybe there is some manipulation of Google. Like yesterday, I had a call with this beautiful little 17-year-old on Instagram who reached out to me and said, "Hey, will you come on?" So I did a little live with her. They censored it. They took it down. They just took it down.
Yeah. I've been censored left and right. And the weird thing is, back to what you were saying about, people, what our whole conversation is, people getting us or not, is my people that love the book Raising Hell, and they're like, wow, you really knocked it out of the park with that. But then I'll, post something about vaccine dangers or the pandemic or anything like this, and I've lost so many readers of Raising Hell because they just can't, take that next step of what else do we need to uncover or look at. And I'm a savior and a heretic at the same time to the same people. So I'm sure you get that too. And that's probably the same your tribe that you have experienced some of the rejection with.
I'm going to write that down. Maybe that's the title of our show, Heretics and Saviors. It's so good. But yeah, absolutely. Because it's just too much. It's like people can really people have loved some of the decisions I made. Like some people have really resonated with me, like wanting to, I'm healing from breast cancer. So a lot of people are like, I love that you wanted to do that, all alternative and natural modalities. Some people just could not deal with that. Like, oh my God, you're going to die. You have kids. Some people love, that I moved to Mexico. Some people hated it, but it's like, it's just the projection. I think anyone who's like you or like me, speaking the truth, look, we're all assignments in each other's lives. I don't get to choose what role I get to play in your life. Maybe I'm the heretic, maybe I'm the savior. Either
or both
way,
at the same time.
or both at the same time, but either way, it's a good thing because it's bringing forward your fear. And this is what we're detoxifying from. We're purifying ourselves from our fear. So if I say something on social media that's true for me, I'm not saying it because I want to hurt you. I'm not, it's not even about you. I'm saying it because it resonates with me and I'm excited about this information and I want to share it. And however someone takes it, like I can't control that. I'm not responsible for other people's thoughts and feelings and behaviors. They're totally free, but I'm responsible for mine. And so what I think one of the biggest shifts, and I really want to hone this in and make this point very clear, that you living your life based on what you think other people are going to think and say and feel about you is living in the dark. That's living in fear. It's we need to step out of that and just keep staying in the light, keep staying in, all right, Spirit, what would you have me say today? Where would you have me go? Who would you have me talk to? It's like really shifting out of living our lives based on what other people think we should say and the fear of what they will say. Now, there are trigger points right now, indeed. Trump, you say his name, everybody freaks the fuck out. Sorry for my language. You say vaccines, everybody goes, ah! You say, what else? A pandemic, and everybody goes, it's not, it's real. It's like you could say anything but it's because our collective fear is at the surface. And guys, I just want to say,
so true.
Bless it. Let's bless it. Let's talk about it. Like that was what was so surprising to me, Julie, and I'll pass it back to you in a second here. Like that the community that I'm that is now like leaving my matrix and my field right now. Like they wouldn't even talk about these things. And that was what really surprised me because I am in the business of direct and clear communication. Right. So it's like, that's what we do. We talk about hard things. We talk about, the abortion you had. We talk about the eating disorder you had. We talk about the abuse you had. Like, this is what we do because what we're all up to right now, and now what's happening collectively, is that we are uncovering the fears that we've treasured. And we're brave enough, and we're in a community that believes that love prevails always, so that we can move through these things together. And that's I think the bottom line, and what I find so, surprising on one level. And maybe it's just about timelines. Maybe it's like, they're okay, fine, you're not ready yet, okay, and we'll circle back around in a few moments, but don't take me down, because I'm on a roll, and I'm not going to let anybody take me down anymore and make me feel ashamed, or that maybe I do need mental help or whatever. No, I'm in touch with God, and that's plenty for me. And I can look at the facts of life right now and be encouraged that I'm on the right track. And I think that that's what's important for those of us that are sharing right now our truth and what's resonating, maybe not from an educational perspective, but from an inner standing and knowing that this is happening and that you want to be a part of the correction. And
Right.
That's that.
Well, a lot of stuff you're saying kind of touches on the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, right? Have you read?
A little bit. I'm not so familiar, but share.
Well, okay. What's the Joseph Campbell book I'm trying to think of? It's not the hero's journey, but it's The Power of Myth. Such a good book. I've heard hero's journey is a little bit hard to get through, but I highly recommend The Power of Myth. That whole book is just so fantastic. And it's basically the Jesus story. Everything you're saying and everything we're experiencing in this life is this series of crucifixions and resurrections.
Amen.
And that's what all those rebirths are. And you and I can take from the verbiage of our, previous religious culture, because it's beautiful. The symbols are there for all of humanity. And in the book Raising Hell, I actually talk about the Jewish symbolism, which is so beautiful once you understand it, of like the harvest and how there's always one harvest before another one. And, you're here with those of us who are waking up ahead of the rest are bringing to the front, to the forefront, the fears of the rest and the darkness of the rest. And, in the Hebrew culture, you had like the three harvests. You had the barley, the wheat, and the grapes. And the barley was the first harvest of spring. And, that was comparable to like what the Bible calls the chosen or the overcomers. They're not better than anybody else. They're just ahead of the rest. They're the ones going through that birth canal first and opening the way. And then you've got the wheat, it starts after the barley harvest and goes all through summer. And that's the, the people that are like, okay, well, Marie did, Julie did it, Marie did it. Maybe I can do it. I can get through the, the birth canal. And then there's the grapes. And, in the Bible, the grapes are portrayed as this bloody mess that are being squashed under feet. And it just looks like a violent God. But in the Jewish culture, the grapes are the most celebrated part of the crop. Yes, they have the toughest skin, and they're the hardest to, bring about in at the end. But their crop is the most celebrated. It's the wine. It's the sweet wine, and it's the one that has the most contrast. And most of the people think that the grapes are the hypocrites, the religious people who were the biggest obstacles, the Pharisees. And anyway, just from when you were talking, I was thinking of my own personal journey through this and how I can give you a great example of not being ready and how we villainize people who are trying to show us the way and facing us either with our darkness or our fears. And I was just thinking about this week, I'm reading a book called Journey of Souls. Have you ever heard of it?
No. I love that you're giving me all these reading assignments. I'm like, right. I want to read your book too.
Oh my gosh, I have so many books I could recommend that are just game changers. But I don't know if I would call Journey of Souls a game changer, but 10 years ago, I had people, after on the heels of me writing Raising Hell and me starting to question, what's this story about? And I had some people recommend this book to me, and it's about reincarnation. And at that time, I was not ready to hear about reincarnation. It was like, first of all, I had a lot of assumptions about what reincarnation is or isn't. And I found that most of my fears are through life that I have encountered and worked through are based on assumptions, and usually wrong assumptions. And so to get through fears, the first thing you have to do is have an openness, and you have to say, what am I afraid of? Okay, and what do I believe and why? And then you have to start like bringing in information and synthesizing and ruminating on it. And with fearlessness, you have to just say, okay, I'm going to consider reincarnation, and I'm not going to be afraid of it because I don't know. And maybe it's true and maybe it's not true, but what do I have to be afraid of? Because if it is true, I don't really have a choice about it. So I might as well, understand it. And so for the last 10 years, I've been kind of I've been pushing this away because I've just been afraid of the idea. However, in the last couple of years, I would say, suddenly I'm being presented mostly inwardly through just a lot of meditation and introspection with new ideas about reincarnation that make it much more palatable than the one that I had assumptions about. And so for the first time, I've had this book on my shelf for 10 years, and for the first time I'm reading it now, and I'm taking in the parts of it that resonate with what my inner teacher has been teaching me about this concept. And I'm like, why was I so afraid of this? And it was just because of misunderstanding. And I feel like that's where people are at. And we, as way showers for people to overcome fears, the first thing we have to just do is say, like you said, if love is really the foundation and it's really a safe universe, then you can trust that anything that you're afraid of, there's going to be a perspective on it that you are capable of getting through, and not just getting through, but overcoming and thriving in. And the real truth sets you free. It doesn't put you back into bondage. And so that's what you can trust. So anyway.
Preach, sister. Wow. Wow. That's what's so amazing, about this community that is just like organically being brought together by this divine matrix. Like that, everything you just said, up into you even said inner teacher, like that's something we've been talking about in our communities for a long time, that we need to step away from our inner critic and step into our inner teacher. And we get to decide which voice we listen to. And so it's the critic that looks at all of this, reincarnation or whatever it is that's happening, and is like, oh, that can't be true, that's crazy, or what. It's just afraid. It's just our lower level consciousness. And so just acknowledging that you have that and saying, okay, why am I afraid? Where do these thoughts come from? That's what we do in the coaching model that I teach and that I also support others with, is okay, let's look at our fears. Let's break this down. And every time you do that, because the universe is safe and friendly and all about love and evolution, and organizes itself so that you can keep growing and growing and growing, because its goal is your enlightenment. Like that's what the goal, like God wants you fully in the field of love. That's God's intention for us. We're just learning how to line up our intention to that. But we do that by questioning our fears, by, looking at things. Like when I first started getting majorly red pilled like this year, like it was always about, wow, this is a lot of fear for me. And I wanted to blame the people that were giving me the information. I tried, but at the end, it was like, it was my perspective on it. And it was, how can I heal this? And then that's really what it comes down to. It's like, how are we going to heal? How are we going to make ourselves whole again? How are we going to let go of all of these fears that we have? And just being open. Wow. Is that a powerful and empowering place to be? Just to be open. Like, I don't really know about reincarnation, but tell me about it. How do you set it up in your head? And that's fearless. That's playful. It's because our inner child energy is so afraid, because we've been raised in these you're going to go to hell if you think differently. So we're so afraid to be curious. We're so afraid to learn new things. And, we always go to the experts, and we don't necessarily go to the person who's just been sitting there meditating for a year. Like, what did you learn from your journey? It's like, anyway.
Well, and really it just goes back to there's these two foundational questions that we all have to address within ourselves. And one is that perception of separation. Huge. Am I connected or am I separate? There's no really in between. And if you can you have to set yourself up for the experiences of connection to overcome that perception of separation. You know, the meditation, the, you know, being in connection with others who have a similar vibe or, you know, understanding. But the second one is just addressing, which I've been, you know, having to work through this year, is that foundation. Am I going to, no matter what, keep this anchor in that it's a safe, loving universe? And I think this year I think we go through new levels of challenge in our growth because the universe wants us to be solid. Like, we can't have these unaddressed areas in us that are vulnerable, right? We have to, the universe knows what our weak points are, and it goes after those, because you have to settle within yourself on every level of your being that it is a safe universe and you are loved. And if you can keep addressing all the fears and all of the obstacles to that foundation that come up, there's nothing that's going to rattle you, because every question that you face, you're going to start it with that first premise. And you're going to know that if this sounds scary over here, you know what I'm thinking about, I've still got this foundation and I'm going to land here, and it's all going to somehow make sense once I fully understand it and integrate it into myself. So
Beautiful. What you said was just so huge there. And it really does provoke a lot of feelings too. It's like even we get afraid of our feelings. We get afraid of, you know, and so if you're thinking about things, you're going to feel that it's a thought first. So it's thoughts and then feelings. So it's like, then I think that's what's happening too. And that's what happens certainly with me, like having to alchemize those feelings, like of just anxiety and despair and sadness and judgment and all of that. But when you know that it's a cleansing and purifying process, and that the more willing you are to allow that and not resist it as a cleansing, you know, as I really see it as like the universe is intentional, right? So it's going to pull it through, but it's absolutely going to pull it out. And as you ground it out, you know, all these healing techniques that we have, and that's amazing. You ground it out, you clear the space for higher vibrations of light and love and energy to make a home in your field. And that is how we continue to walk forward. And then we can continue to hold bigger spaces, do these types of conversations, put ourselves out there, because we're alchemizing higher and higher levels of fear daily, if not momentarily. And as you do that, you're more open to the love. That foundation that you've decided on it can trust you.
Well, I would just say too that if people are at a place of fear in their lives, that's actually a really good sign, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are not awake to the things within them that are still fragile or unaddressed. And if you are in a state of fear, it's because the universe loves you so much that it's going after another one of your areas that is threatening you, to take away your peace, to take away your sense of connection. And, you know, I know for myself in this last year, for as far as I feel like I've come in my life and in addressing fears, this year just kind of threw me for a loop internally as much as externally, because, you know, I feel like the universe started bringing things out in me that were still unaddressed childhood wounds in me, of like abandonment and stuff. And I'm like one of the most introspective, you know, like throughout my life, I'm always working on myself, you know, like what new level can I get myself to here of healing and, you know, integration and compassion and, you know, facing my fears. And it's like, just when you think that you've arrived, there's going to be another new layer you're faced with. And you should always take that as an encouragement that you are in this process and you are being held and loved and nurtured into that higher, best version of yourself. And so I guess what I'm saying is, never be discouraged that you find another layer of fear or discouragement or opposition or whatever, because it's kind of like a boxing match with the universe, where it's always going to try to look for your weak point so it can build you up to be stronger. And it's not to take you down. Absolutely. It's, you know, we have a lot ahead of us. And if some of this stuff, you know, that we're all learning about is true, like the new golden age on earth, and coming into this like new era of rebuilding, you know, the cities. And I was trying to think of the Bible verbiage here, but you know, like all the walls that have been torn down over these times with corrupt leadership and corrupt intentions. But I think we are coming into, both astrologically and spiritually and psychically, and you know, all those ways, I think we're coming into a new place. We're going to need some really strong leaders that have faced all these fears and that can help. And you know, you can't just face a fear cognitively, you have to feel it in order to actually be able to help someone else through it. Like, I've had to be in the bottom of the cesspool with my emotions and my struggles and my mistakes before I will ever be able to be any good for anyone else. And I have been there, so.
Well, and that's why you're so amazing, and you're articulating this beautifully. I mean, really, really, it's so just encouraging and healing for me to hear you speak like this, because it's like, this is what I've been saying, and I felt so alone. But like, here you are sitting in front of me, like, you're saying the same rap that I've been saying in your own beautiful, unique way. But the bottom line is, again, that just beautiful foundation, and how the universe really is removing the barriers to love's presence, so that we can continue to purify and walk straight into this golden age, which really feels like it's happening. Like, at least in my reality, I'm kind of like, wow, I feel so blessed that I've had a couple years of a head start in a way, you know, getting down to Mexico, setting ourselves up, and now like looking at property and looking at people coming down here and putting together our community and our, you know, children's programs and our adult programs for healing and educational things that are about, you know, just bottom line healing. And healing is only coming back to the truth of who you are, without all of the programs, without all the trauma, without all of that. And that's the process that I think that, because you, like you said, you've been so introverted and introspective, and you've always been on your work, which is, that's because you've been chosen as a leader, and you've accepted that. You had a contract with that, if you want to talk like that level. Like, you decided a very long time ago that that's what you were going to do now, and you're showing up beautifully. And I just want to acknowledge you for that, and all of the people that have been reaching out and connecting with each other in social. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. I can't keep saying that enough.
And just an affirmation for those who might be listening, who are walking this path. If you feel like you have had the crucifixion, you're not alone, because you have to have that before you can live in the resurrection life. And so we all have that in common, but those are the only people that are fit for leadership, are those who have had that death, and they know what it feels like to be in that ultimate place, you know, like Jesus or whatever, where everybody left and you died alone, and then you come out the other side and you have something to say because you actually understand love. So
that's beautiful. Beautiful. And we're coming to the top of the hour, which is perfect timing. But you know, I want to say this too, that everyone watching and hearing Julie's testimony and everything that she shared and everything that I've shared too, that celebrate your wins. I think that part of what's happening is that people think like they're not good enough is coming up, and they're like, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, and you're crazy. It's like, already look at all of the ways that you have been crucified and come back up. It's everybody's gone through some level of this process, because that's what this experience in this dimension is about. But this is the time now to take it a little bit further, to trust yourself a little bit more, to challenge your systems, to challenge your programs, to look at where you want to project and judge. You know, if someone's coming from their heart and saying, look, I believe this to be true. I've studied it. I've paid attention to it. I know it. Like it's not negotiable for me anymore. And I'm sharing that. You know, the best way to approach that from my humble perspective and from my humble opinion is just to be curious. Like, well, how did she get there? How did you get to that book? You know, well, how did you, you know, how did, just that level of curiosity, I think, I can't stress that enough, that's so healing. Instead of going straight into critic, she's crazy, this can't be right, all of that, like try and step out of that, because not for us, because we're good, but like for you, because that energy is stalling your advancement and your ascension process. It's there for you to look at. Anytime you have hate or anger or judgment or anything, it's yours. So even now, like I can look at some of the things that are happening on the planet, and I mean, I certainly was really angry and I was certainly really upset, and I definitely went through all of that. But now I'm not, it's fine. Like I've accepted it. I'm not as triggered. Even though I do get triggered still, for the most part, I'm practicing forgiveness on a moment to moment basis. And that means removing my resentments, my grievances, and my judgments. And that's the work. And I think that that's the sign of the times, is that everybody has to do it themselves. Like everybody has to do their own work. And I think that's why people like us are coming together and speaking out on this, because we love you. And it's from that place. And it's not like, you know, the old kind of tough love. It's not that. It's not a judgment. No one here is judging you. No one here thinks that you haven't had difficulties in your life and successes in your life. What we're saying is that 2020 was about clear vision. And there are things happening on this planet right now that too many of us don't want. We don't want to live on a planet, and Gaia doesn't want it either. And it's up to us to all decide together. You know, it's this whole line, where we go one, we go all. Like, we want to go here. We want to go to a more enlightened culture, a more enlightened society. And that's all that this is about. That's all that this is about. And we're just here to bring as many people as we can out of the dark and into the light. And we've all been there. We've all been there. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. And the other thing I would just add to that is, I feel like one of the ways that Christianity and other religion probably fails us is they stop with the crucifixion story. You know, like it's all about how we have to die and we have to give up and we have to suffer. And one of the biggest places that I was taken in the last, few years is, there's suffering only serves you for a period of time, and then it's time to stop suffering, and it's time to walk into that resurrection life and the life of empowerment, and to know who you are and why you're here and what you're about, and know that suffering has, worked its purpose in your life, and that's not the end of the story. Suffering isn't the end of the story. Resurrection is the end of the story. And so I also just want to leave you with a really powerful book that I think you would enjoy, and any of the listeners here who are interested in this. It's called The Sophia Code by Kaya Ra.
Okay.
And it's actually a journey. I've been going through this book every year now for 3 years, and it has these key codes that you say out loud, and it's all about like ascension and walking into that, that empowerment. And it's just like an amazing book. And I feel like it's definitely brought a lot of empowerment into my life. So check it out.
Thank you for that, Julie. I'm so honored and so grateful for this time together, and that you reached out to me. I was like staying up late at night, just being like, look at all these messages, like look at all these humans that have been coming into my life. And everybody's so like, yeah, let's get on a call. Let's talk about things. And just not knowing anything, that it was going to be a beautiful conversation. So I love how God is working through us.
I didn't realize that you have had the diagnosis of breast cancer, and just from a holistic wellness nurse standpoint, get in touch with me if, I'm sure you're getting a lot of good care, but I might have a lot of things to add to that conversation too. So
thank you.
I would love to help you any way I can in your healing journey.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I mean, I've never felt better. I've never looked better. I've never been more alive. It's been
look
incredible.
Vibrant. You look absolutely vibrant. So
it's the light. I mean, I just like every day I'm like, wow, like I stick my face in the sun. I'm in the ocean. I'm in the water almost every day.
So good.
It's amazing. And I wish you a lot of blessings and a lot of, just keep on it. You're doing so great. I'm so impressed with your energy and everything. And I know we're going to stay in touch, and we're all going to have centers. That's what this is about. This is what Charlie's saying too. Like, guys, just you get your center together, because, we're going to need some mass healing, like some mass energy. And we're all going to need to hold space and circles for our brothers and sisters all over the world. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's going to be great too, just to feel like we have a network of brothers and sisters that we can count on to support us and, just further our commitment and healing people. So thank you for everything you're doing too. This was really wonderful this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy. We're in touch, Julie. You take care of
Okay.
yourself, and so much love
Okay.
to you. So
Okay,
much
you
love.
too. Thank
All right,
you.
sweetie.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.